You can't ignore that demographic that's looking for an economical process. Not everybody has the money to hit a premium category. Still, they deserve to have their access of legal product and not be forced into a gray market zone.
Willkommen beim VCA Hanfgespräch, dem Podcast zur medizinischen Wirkung von Cannabis. Dr. Christiane Neubauer trifft Patientinnen und Patienten, die ihre Geschichten und Erfahrungen teilen. Ehrlich, nah und informativ.
Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer weiteren Folge des Podcasts Das Hanfgespräch. Mein Name ist Dr. Christiane Neubauer, ich bin Apothekerin und die Geschäftsführerin des Verbandes der Cannabis-versorgenden Apotheken, kurz VCA. Heute spreche ich mit Michael Sassano. Er ist kein Patient, sondern der CEO der Firma SOMAÍ, die in Portugal unter anderem Cannabisextrakte herstellt. Ich stelle Michael in diesem Gespräch ein paar kritische Fragen zu der Entwicklung des deutschen Medizinalcannabis-Marktes. Das Gespräch ist auf Englisch und nach dem Interview fasse ich die wichtigsten Punkte des Gesprächs auf Deutsch zusammen. Ich bitte jetzt schon um Entschuldigung für mein nicht so perfektes Englisch. Ich war auf einem altsprachlichen Gymnasium und habe somit die englische Sprache leider vernachlässigt und mir fehlt die Praxis. Folgen Sie jetzt diesem interessanten Gespräch. So, welcome Mr. Sassano. It's a pleasure to have you as my guest on the VCA Hanf Talk. Would you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name's Michael Sassano. I'm the CEO of SOMAÍ Pharmaceuticals, and we're a multi-country vertically integrated operator and also present in the German market.
So, since April 2024, the medical cannabis market has been booming. Imports have increased from 32 to 72 tons. We now have around 800 different flower varieties that are more or less available on the market. Is this a still healthy market environment?
Germany is really paving the way towards a European, let's say, change in access, and having a selection, having choice is a part of a maturing market. So is it healthy? I think it's standard, right? As different countries have developed, the US markets, the Canadian markets, the German market, the Australian market, as these more mature markets came into better access for the patients, so too became the access to different varieties of strains and different varieties of extracts. And so these all lead to more demographics that can access and really plays into the effect of what a competitive market needs to look like in the future, which is a choice of product for whatever may ail you.
But the large number of flower varieties make the market increasingly confusing for doctors and for the pharmacists. In your opinion, what needs to change?
It's a great question.
Yes, it is.
And I do acknowledge this is confusing for a doctor and a pharmacist who have, let's say a job to do. And it's very difficult for them to keep up with all of the different strains and all the different extract choices that become available as markets mature. I wish I could give you better advice as to how this needs to occur, but definitely education in multiple different formats need to occur for people to understand what these varieties mean. But they need to be able to help the patients, right? And so the patients are being subjugated to finding education from everywhere they can. And so it could be on Reddit, it could be on correlating engines that speak about like flows and things that speak about the products or give information on the products. It could be to a smaller degree because they, manufacturers and growers can't advertise. It could be just from learning from their websites. And so these are disjointed educational platforms And it's tough for pharmacists and doctors to keep up with it. But the pharmacists and doctors that really want to excel at educating or helping their patients, unfortunately, are going to have to learn, right? It's no other choice. And, in one way you can simplify things, because there's certain markers, like THC levels or terpene levels or dominant terpenes for flowers that can help people to find the right answer. On the other side, with extracts, there's also the same terpenes and different formats of delivery, but every demographic that's looking to, as markets start to reach farther from initially as they started, maybe the people that are critically ill, the clinical accepted paths, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, stage 3 cancer. As markets mature, they add in pain relief, of course. As markets really mature, there's stress, anxiety, sleep disorders, things like that. And so each one of those demographics, depending on their age or what they're using it for, may require something different. Especially, if you look towards, the older generation. So 20% of the market in the US is above 60 years old. They're less likely to want to take a flower and promote that. They're used to 1 to 10, 15 pills a day. I'm not saying that's good, but I'm saying that's what they're used to. And maybe they need a pill format. Maybe they need something that's different for their demographic, and they're going to need that choice. So unfortunately, it's going to be more SKUs. So as an example, Australia, which is a little more mature in products available, there's over 1,400 SKUs. If you come to like one of our, in the United States, we have quite a few facilities and outlets for dispensing. And if you go to one of them, there could be well over 1,000 SKUs just in one store alone.
Wow.
So I'm not just talking a country. I'm talking one store, 1,000 different SKUs in it. And it's confusing.
Yes.
But I've been to Germany and I tried to order a pizza and there's over 500 choices of toppings.
Yeah. But it's definitely too much for German pharmacists, I think. So.
I can't even order a pizza there. So, I'm sure it's confusing all the choices at 800.
So back to the flowers. Cannabis flowers, the future of medical market? Or do we need alternative dosage forms?
Well, for sure, I'm on the side of alternative dosage form. I think they all have their place, right? So there's no world where flower is the singular only product, in my mind. Especially on the medical side, you will find oral solutions, in the future become more dominant. So let's take, like, as an example, a mature state that's been had cannabis available for the last 2 decades in the United States as an example. In general, the state looks like 1/3 flower, 1/3 oral solutions, and 1/3 vaporizing solutions. Those numbers could be 50% flower, 25% vaporizer, and 25% oral solutions. But still, that choice and those performances reach to different demographics seeking relief for their different indications and something that makes sense for them. So you can't reach larger demographics just on flower alone. But flower has always been the generally first accepted because it's the chicken before the egg. You can't have extra if you don't have flowers. But now in countries like France and Spain, and new countries coming on, these are, and like Brazil as an example, extracts can be the first choice, and they are a first mover for those markets because the flower does exist now in the markets. But if you go back to 2017, there was one or two flowers, why would there be an extract when there's such a limited supply? So it takes time to develop that, and then it takes time to develop products that people want. And as an example, a simple crude oil extract, which has existed in the German market for the last many years, is a evolution that started in the early 1900s by Eli Lilly. By 2001, what was called RSO, Rick Simpson oil, was a modern version of that early 1900 extract, but then since changed dramatically over the course of early 2000s to present day. And so technology has changed it and created different form factors, which might have started as a gel cap and then turned into an oral gum, or it started as a vaporizing unit like a Volcano and then became a portable vaporizing unit, which may not be medical right now today, but there will be medical versions coming just because of the ease of use. The consumer wants, something, and the market adapts to it.
Yes, but we have the problem in Germany that we have only 2 medical devices which are allowed in Germany. And this is also a problem. We need other medical devices to make this situation a little bit better in Germany. This is really difficult to get a new medical device.
This is correct. And rules are rules. And, we span 12 countries growing to 20. So we understand that every market has their specific rules. And, like a market like Australia or the UK, where they have a different program, right, accept these. And let's say what's best for the consumer. Not all of them are going to be able to smoke the flower as it is in that current state. Some of them don't know how to use the machinery. Some of them want something easier. It's a matter of regulatory affairs. But you do see on a state-by-state basis in Germany, and I don't know if I think this is less a bee farm thing as it is a state-by-state regulatory thing. You do see the advent of different form factors and extracts coming in. Whether they're properly done or not, I don't try to make a justification for, because I have to sit on the side of opening access to more demographics so people can reach, the healing that they're looking for. So in the spirit of open access, it's good. In the spirit of regulations, it's very gray and murky as to how these are happening.
That's right. Let's talk about the price dumping in the flower segment. Due to telemedicine, we now have many self-paying patients who are happy about low prices, of course. But what does this mean for product quality? Are the low margins still sustainable for the industry, or will it ultimately impact quality?
Yeah, I just wrote a piece about this, and it's a two-way answer on this. Of course, lower prices is going to affect quality, because flowers that normally wouldn't have been accepted into Germany are now finding their way because they're low price. And in one side, that appeals to a specific demographic, and so you can't ignore that demographic that's looking for an economical process. Not everybody has, the money to hit a premium category, and still they deserve to have their access of legal product and not be forced into a gray market zone. And so on one side, I think you're always are going to have, it's like a triangle. On the bottom, there's always going to be more of the low quality. And at the top, there's going to always be the premium. There's always less of this up here than there is down here. And a while ago, somebody said something I strongly agree with, is there is enough capacity for low quality flower, outdoor, very simple greenhouses in so many countries, Colombia, South Africa, Thailand, Canada, everywhere has so much of this greenhouse outdoor flower that it actually could fill the entire need by volume of the global universe and supplement what is a supplement to a legal sale. However, there's always going to be the premium category, but premium doesn't necessarily mean it has to be at a super high price. It will also come down in price, not as much as the lower end, which will be more competitive, but it will reach a economic zone where people are willing to pay that, in order to reach that quality standard. And premium never goes away. It only becomes more in shortage. And so what you'll see is price drops in the lower category will always be here, whereas the premium category kind of just goes down just a little bit because there's not enough of it. And one thing I recently told some people, I said, how many indoors do you think exist in the global markets? Because on our side, we deal only with indoor flower. And so there's maybe in the whole universe, 100 indoor facilities, and they're all quite small. And so imagine that quality, if you want to call indoor quality, you can call enclosed greenhouses because it gets the natural sunlight quality. You could call even organic grown flowers as a quality standard. Well, those are so limited. There's so little of them that they have to exist in their own. And so even on extracts, the price still has to be fair. So you have what's called a golden triangle. And the golden triangle basically says you have to have a high performance. You have to have form factors that people want, basically something that tastes good. And you have to have the right price. If you don't have all three of those when making a product, you're going to have difficulty selling them. So as an example, a regular extract could be here, a resin could be here, a rosin could be here. And those appeal to different demographics, but still you have to have all those possibilities because each demographic wants it. Is an extract versus a rosin a bad quality? No, but they do have different pricing based upon input materials that require more attention in order to get to that standardization.
Yeah, we haven't no price dumping at the extracts. There's no price dumping. And it's, I agree, it's a fair price for extracts. We see only this kind of price dumping in the flower market. And this is a big problem.
It happens with the flower first because you have lots of growers around the world that are accessing a closed system. And it's really coming in rapid because they heard Germany's expanding. And so they're trying to, on one side, you're trying to fill the demand of the market. On the other side, people want to explore their possibilities of sale into that market that normally were closed under lower volumes. So, the Germans weren't buying all flour from everybody, but now they've opened the floodgate to satisfy demand. Well, that will even out over time. And you are seeing, even though, our extract product is always going to be at an economical price, we believe in economical pricing, depending on your standardization of what means quality. Everybody says the word quality, but what does it mean? Does it mean the technology in your facility? Does it mean a standardized way of purchasing flour so that you're only making it from full bud flour like we do? Or are you using trim and you have just one singular extraction process and you're calling that quality because you're GMP? Well, how do you compare that to full bud flour with a 3-step extraction process in order to get the most out of that flour? And that's, maybe what people are looking at, but it is coming into extracts where people are getting emboldened and buying, getting cheaper product from countries and then formulating it under a magisterial prep format. So you can buy an extract out of South Africa for very low. You can compound pharmacy produce it, and then you will have your 10-10 or 25 for 1 in the market. And you will see versions of those coming, trying to compete at our price level. We are fine with that because we have 50 versions of those products. So it's like, great. But we've already expanded to different versions to show that it's not just about formulation. It's about terpene preferences and different flavonoid preferences within those, and then different form factors to do it. So, it will come to extracts and the market will differentiate those. And it's going to be tough. You have to really educate the world on what's coming and try to stand above the rest when in those competitive markets.
In the pharmacies, we are seeing large differences in the microbial quality of cannabis flowers. High levels of mold colonies can pose risk to patients. There are no harmonized requirements for microbial quality in the European pharmacopoeia. However, in these cases, the pharmacy is considered the distributor. Means we bear the responsibility. What needs to change to ensure that pharmacies can dispense cannabis flowers with confidence?
This is very difficult,
Yes, it is.
For 18 years, I've lived in a microbial-free environment because of, the industry I work in. I could walk into a room and smell a problem with There's a few ways to look at this. When people land product, like as an example, from Canada into Germany, right? The lab testing in Canada is completely different than lab testing in Europe. As an example that I just went through yesterday, one lab in Canada does a PCR test where another lab does a platesome. And so plated product will always have a microbial count that's exact, whereas the PCR test will always come back clean in general, unless there's a serious problem. A standardization of microbial content needs to occur, in order for people to land the product there. Inside our grow, it's a small indoor grow. And so we own our own lab. And so we have our COAs, a final COA. We have our microbiology through plated method. And so in that situation, we're controlling our quality rather than randomly taking what we've produced and then sending it out to a lab. We're controlling that quality level all along the way when you own your own lab. Well, most people don't have this, and most growers are living hand to mouth. So they're thinking, well, you know what? I'm going to sell it to Germany and let them deal with it. And the German receives it and he says, oh, wow, I have microbial issues. And his decision is, do I lose all this money? Do I fix it? What can I do? Because I've already paid all the way up front for this. And the Canadians don't want to just send their product because you can't send it back. And so now that product has to be sent to be irradiated in order to be cleaned. Well, we received a long time ago, we received product with mold that was irradiated and there was visible mold on it. And we looked at it, we said, well, we're rejecting this even if the COAs of the microbials are correct, because obviously you've radiated something that was bad. Well, you will get that from growers because they're in financial struggles. And so having secure supply lines when you're growing so fast is extremely difficult because you're looking at bulk rather than being careful about who's your partner that you're choosing, and you're opening yourselves up to new partners, which opens up to microbial issues 100% every single time, because the standards we deal with are not the standards other countries deal with.
Okay, interesting. We are increasingly confronted with greenwashing. So let's talk about greenwashing. For example, flowers are imported as raw material or only pre-dried into the EU country and are then further processed under EU GMP standards. These products are subsequently imported into Germany as EU GMP compliant. Another example, decontamination methods are used that are not GMP certified and therefore not permitted, with the aim of reducing microbial contamination outside of the GMP compliant process. Are you familiar with such practices, and what is your opinion on them?
Well, you're picking all the great questions.
Yes.
Nothing easy in your questions.
No,
You're picking the tough ones.
Interesting questions.
I mean, because we have two facilities that in Lisbon that you'll come visit, and we're really happy about that because we love to show off what we do. We have two GMP 1 and 2 facilities plus a GMP lab. And so, we're invested in the EU GMP format. However, I have to think about this a little bit, how I say this. The demand in Germany is so large right now, and there's not enough EU GMP facilities. On one side, I could say, great, it could only be EU GMP and don't do this process, and then my product will be one of a few that are allowed in the market over the next 2 years. And that would be great for my business. But then my opening up access mind says, how do you stop servicing whatever, 1 million patients in order to make this transition, to there? You've seen in many countries, Portugal, multiple packaging groups, and their job is to EU GMP, re-dry, package, and send it up to those countries. And this process started in Israel, where product would land there and they would process it under their rules. And that same process has permeated Europe. Many Israeli companies, as a matter of fact, do this packaging for a service. It's a hard one for me because we are invested in EU GMP, but then I also worry about the patients in every country and how this exactly happens. And I think, you bring up the point of mitigation. Well, is that H2O? Is it ozone-assisted mitigation? Is it a cryo freeze with a heating mitigation? Is it some sort of E-beam? Is it some sort of, other radiation? Is it, simply closing your bags really tight and taking out the air with a vacuum seal in order to kill the microbes? These are all mitigation techniques which bring about a better flower for, a non-microbial flower for growers that really have difficulty struggling to get to a microbial-free grow. We're lucky enough to be a non-irradiated facility, and we don't have any microbial mitigation techniques. But should there be for the ones that can?
Yes.
It's such a difficult question because I would say 95% of growers cannot grow at the level that's needed because it just doesn't exist.
Yes.
What are growers doing? They're drying out their flowers.
This is really a big problem, and this is also that we need alternative dosage forms for inhalation. Another form of a kind of inhalation products. And also the problem is that the COAs has a lack of transparency for the pharmacies. We don't know which kind of decontamination methods the flowers get. It's a big problem. We need more transparency. It would be nice to have a QR code on each package that could provide this level of transparency.
I completely agree with you. And when I see it from a structural point, I see how difficult it is because in Europe, as an example, like if you have a regulator like Infomed, they're extremely serious about this industry because this is with, I believe, 60 license sets in Portugal. They believe this is a good industry for their country. And so Infomed's very serious. They're very strict. And there's no QP and no QA that's going to bend the rules and potentially lose their job because they're looking at their beautiful retirement package. They don't want a scandal on a professional level. But then you get other countries where nobody's checking. And how do you get people to check when it's way over here? All you can do when you receive it here is look at COAs. Now we're even questioning the lab. How do you do your microbial test?
Yeah.
And we're saying, okay, yesterday I sent out an email to a group of people. And I said, please do not use this lab. We have seen microbial issues and they're using the wrong testing method. It will not work for us. And we cannot work with your companies if you're going to use them. And so we have to police internally, unfortunately, because there is no way to police on the other side because the regulators don't care. And that's just a fact of the world we're living in.
Yeah.
And so we'll have to just try harder as Europeans because we are the gatekeepers to, the patients, right?
Yeah, this kind of transparency would make the work in the pharmacy easier, to feel more confidence when I give the patients their medical flowers, and would be nice to have more of this transparency.
I think what you'll find is the larger groups, right? They're all working together for a reason because there's already a confidence between us. And the smaller groups may cut corners and you have like flower brokers flying around like crazy. I got the newest, best flower, and they're just receiving product that's microbial, infested, variable, THCs, variable, quality standards, no things. And you're finding that the gatekeepers of the larger companies are saying, no, we don't want this anymore. We'll just stick. We'll stick to we'll pay a little more and stick to who we need to work with that can deliver in a consistent format that conforms to our regulations. And the amount of money you can lose is too much. Now these orders are so large. To lose 200 kilos, of flour coming in, which is a small order now, and it used to be a massive order. 200 kilos has become a small order for us, but to lose that could be hundreds of thousands of euros. And to make a mistake is just not worth it financially. You just can't recover from that kind of a loss.
I agree. The market has to regulate it. Now, my last question. How do you assess the future of cannabis as medicine? What do we need to advance the field? And how can we continue to involve it?
I mean, cannabis is a medicine, whether it's, I hate the word recreational. The people that can go into a store, let's say, and purchase it in America, which is 10 billion of the 34 billion is medical, and the other 24 billion is adult choice, let's say. But still, those adults that are going for that adult choice are trying to solve some problem. They may not have a doctor there, but they are solving some issue, even if it's as innocuous as daily stress. And so it is a medicine. There is no doubts about that. And I believe that any governmental doubts, like in America, still there's a doubt as to whether it's Schedule 1 or Schedule 3. Well, that's just politics, not the reality, because we all know it's a medicine. So I stay on that side. The medical standards in Europe or the global markets, and I try to differentiate US, Canada from global markets, the trend is medical. The trend is not adult usage. And so the medical pathway is what's coming out country after country after country. And so the EU GMP standard is the gold standard. It's not SAFRA GMP out of South Africa. It's EU GMP. It's not Canadian GPP. It's not Australian GMP. It's EU GMP. EU GMP could go to any country.
Yes.
And it's the gold standard. It could even go to the United States, and we're working on a veterans program there. EU GMP is global medicine.
Yes.
we're invested in that quality standard. And we believe that the pathway that's opening up country by country by country is always going to be a pharmacist's delivery. And it's almost always going to have a doctor, whether that doctor is constrained to a few indications, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, things, or they open up to other categories like pain relief, which would be bringing it to a more, let's say, modern pitch, or like Germany, it's open to a multitude of indications and it's no longer a narcotic. Whether it's medical heavy, medical medium, or medical light is irrelevant to the way we look at it, just that people are getting access in those countries. And we see countries start off hard and move towards a more logical stance because now you see Ireland, Czech, opening up to pain relief possibly, and other countries, Slovenia, recent announcement, Spain, long awaited, they've added pain as one of their categories. And so even though we may not, as people that want more access, be happy about these limited indications, it's still opening up a market needs to be. And what you'll see, I believe, is more countries acknowledging the medical benefits for their patients, acknowledging that big pharma solutions are not necessarily what they should be doing. If you have pain relief and you're being served OxyContin, possibly cannabis might be a better alternative for you. And having that choice is very important. And so we'll continue to see more countries advance a medical program and adopt a medical stance. And I believe Germany has really led the way for people to see that there can be successful integration of cannabis and also to combat the gray market.
Absolutely. So this was my last question. Thank you very much for this conversation, for answering all my critical questions. It was so interesting and I really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Thanks for having me. And I enjoy that you have challenging questions that they're not necessarily black and white, but they got some gray, but it advances the discussion. And I think these are important discussions to have.
We need more discussions about this topic. Then we can involve the cannabis market, I think.
And we look forward to having you here in Lisbon, and we're really proud to show you how we do it over here.
I'm really excited to see your company. Thank you very much and bye.
Thank you.
Ich fasse noch einmal zusammen. Der deutsche Medizinalcannabis-Markt ist seit April 2024 enorm angestiegen. Der Import von Cannabisblüten ist von 32 Tonnen im Jahr 2023 auf 72 Tonnen im Jahr 2024 angestiegen. Es gibt an die 800 verschiedene Blüten auf dem Markt, die es sowohl für Ärzte als auch für die Apotheken sehr unübersichtlich macht. Michael hält eine umfassende Ausbildung von Ärzten und Apothekenmitarbeitern für sehr wichtig, um die richtige Auswahl für Patienten treffen zu können. Hierbei sind gute Kenntnisse zu Terpenprofilen und der Cannabinoidkonzentration wichtig. Weiter sollte man dieses Wissen dann bestimmten Krankheitsbildern zuordnen können. Gerade ältere Patienten können von einer Cannabis-Therapie profitieren. Sie müssen oft viele verschiedene Arzneimittel einnehmen und könnten durch die Co-Medikation mit Cannabis auf einige Medikamente verzichten oder die Dosierung herabsetzen. Aber ältere Patienten brauchen andere Konzentrationen als jüngere. Deshalb braucht man für die Auswahl der Medikation ein gutes Hintergrundwissen. Michael erzählt, dass in den USA in den Dispensaries mehr als 1000 Blütensorten verfügbar sind und das nur in einem Store. Auf meine Frage, ob Blüten noch eine Zukunft in der Medizin haben werden, antwortet er, dass alle Darreichungsformen von Cannabis ihre Daseinsberechtigung haben. Aber mit den Blüten fing eben nun mal alles an. Der Markt wird sich den demografischen Anforderungen anpassen und es wird mehr innovative Anwendungsformen in der Zukunft geben. Aber die Entwicklung der Technologien und Anwendungsformen braucht Zeit. Genauso werden sich auch weitere Inhalationsgeräte in Deutschland entwickeln, obwohl die regulatorischen Hürden für deren Zulassung sehr hoch sind. Wir sprachen auch über die niedrigen Preise der Blüten, die einen Einfluss auf deren Qualität haben. Michael erwähnt, dass sich durch die neue Gesetzgebung ein grauer Markt eröffnet hat, der den Zugang zu Cannabis über die Telemedizin vereinfacht. Das führt zu einem Preisdruck. Er ist der Meinung, dass niedrige Preise natürlich einen Einfluss auf die Qualität haben. Er glaubt aber, dass auch Premium-Sorten mit höheren Preisen ihre Daseinsberechtigung haben. Es hängt von der Art des Anbaus ab, wie er berichtet. Wir haben Indoor-Anbau, Greenhouse-Anbau und er spricht auch über den biologischen Anbau. All das könnte eine gute Qualität erzeugen. Fakt ist, es gibt klare Vorschriften für den Anbau. Das sind die Vorschriften für GACP und für die Weiterverarbeitung die Vorschriften für EU-GMP. All das muss für den Medizinalcannabis in Deutschland eingehalten werden und von einer Qualified Person bestätigt werden. Er spricht über das goldene Dreieck, welches aus einer guten Performance, also einem qualitativ guten Anbau besteht, aus der richtigen Sorte der Blüte, der geschmacklich von Patienten bevorzugt wird und als letztes aus einem fairen Preis. Er meint, dass das Preisdumping der Blüten auch auf den Extrakt im Markt überschwappen könnte. Ich spreche mit ihm dann noch über die mikrobiologische Qualität der Blüten. Wir haben in dem europäischen Arzneibuch keine einheitlichen Vorschriften für die mikrobiologische Qualität. Es finden sich teilweise auch höhere Werte Bakterien, Kolonien bildender Einheiten und Schimmelpilz bildender Einheiten pro Gramm in den Blüten. Das sind zwar erlaubte Werte, allerdings könnten sie zum Beispiel immunsupprimierten Patienten schaden. Wohlgemerkt, es geht hier nur um die Blüte, die direkt vom Patienten inhaliert wird und nicht um die Extrakte, die oral eingenommen werden. Die Apotheke ist als Inverkehrbringer des Arzneimittels in der Verantwortung und muss die Qualität anhand des beigefügten Zertifikates überprüfen. Wir sprechen danach über das Thema Greenwashing. Dies bedeutet in Bezug auf Blüten, dass nicht EU-GMP-konforme Blüten importiert werden und dann erst in einem EU-Land EU-GMP-konform zertifiziert werden. Oder auch, dass Dekontaminationsmethoden angewendet werden, die nicht EU-GMP-konform sind, um die mikrobiologische Qualität der Blüten nachträglich zu verbessern. Hierfür benötigen die Apotheken mehr Transparenz, damit sie die Qualität besser einschätzen können. Michael stimmt hier zu. Dass Seriosität und Transparenz für den Markt absolut wichtig sind. Auch wenn eine Qualified Person die Blüten freigibt und die Verantwortung für die Qualität der Blüte trägt, so müssen sich doch am Ende die Apotheken auf das Zertifikat verlassen können. Und dazu gehören wichtige Informationen, welche Methode zur Keimreduzierung genutzt wurde. Für die Zukunft wünscht sich Michael mehr Ärzte, die Cannabis verschreiben und einen verbesserten Zugang zu Cannabis als Medizin. Und der Weg führt für ihn über die Apotheken. Er sieht die größte Zukunft in dem medizinischen Markt und nicht in dem Recreational-Markt. EU-GMP-konforme Qualität ist für ihn der Goldstandard. In den Anbauländern muss EU-GMP eingehalten werden, um die entsprechende Qualität zu gewährleisten. Cannabis als Therapieform sollte für noch mehr Indikationsbereiche zugänglich sein. Es ist wichtig, den Graumarkt wieder zu verlassen, und das schaffen wir nur, wenn der Zugang für eine Verschreibung durch die Ärzte vor Ort erleichtert wird. Es war ein sehr interessantes Gespräch mit Michael Sassano. Er hat sich all meinen kritischen Fragen gestellt, sodass wir uns mit interessanten Themen auseinandersetzen konnten. Dieses Gespräch ist wie gewohnt auf Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, NR Vision und natürlich auf der Website des VCA zu hören. In diesem Sinne, bleiben Sie dran und bleiben Sie neugierig.
Meine Frau und mein Umfeld und meine Freunde haben sofort gesehen, dass es wesentlich was ausmacht, wie es mir besser geht, und da war auch der Verdacht, dass die Schmerzmittel bei mir selbst wieder Schmerzen ausgelöst haben und deshalb eben auch Umstellung auf Cannabis. Selbst bei starken Schmerzattacken hilft mir Cannabis ganz gut.
Es hat sich alles verbessert. Also meine Arbeitsleistung, ich bin dieses Jahr kaum mehr krank gewesen. Ich habe völlig Fehltage.